hard to feel good about myself when I'm sitting on the, in a barrack with 170 people, you know, rapists and murderers and DUIs, me looking around like, I don't think I belong here. But also the stark reality of like, well, where do I belong? Like, what do my actions tell me? Because society is telling me that that's actually exactly where I belong.
Today, we have Zac Spowart, a conscious relating counselor, the author of Love Unlocked, which I highly, highly recommend everybody get, the founder of Nomadic Addict. He's 19 years sober, a global traveler, currently living in Bali, living his best life. I'm so excited to have you on. We have so much to learn from you, and I'm just excited to pick your brain and gain all the wisdom I can from everything you've done.
Sweet. Thanks for having me. No, yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, you're one of the first people that I spoke to about travel through trauma when I was still ideating it. And you had really gone through the initial processes of building a nonprofit. It was just so valuable to meet another like minded traveler who understood the power of travel for mental health and self development, especially because you're one of the few people I've ever met who's in recovery, who's also doing it and living that lifestyle, which is really powerful. I'm sure a lot of people could relate to that.
Yeah, for sure. No, absolutely. I remember, connecting with you early on. I was so excited. I was like, yeah, this feels like amazing. I think it's a brilliant idea. It's exactly, my wheelhouse or whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's so much of my sobriety has been amazing and I'm grateful for it. But like I like to tell people, I didn't get sober to live in a box. Like I got the tools to live life and to connect with people, and I wanted to go do it. So traveling was amazing once I started doing it, and haven't stopped. Like you said, I'm here in Bali, so it's beautiful, dude. I can't so excited for everybody that's going through what you've created and built, and to continue to watch that grow is fantastic.
Thank you. I want to know more about what conscious relating counseling is before we go into your whole life story.
Beautiful. Yeah, yeah, it's a great question. I really love it. It's one of my favorite things to be asked. And so, one of the best questions I got around this was someone said, if you could describe conscious relating in one word, what would you say? And the word that popped in my head instantly was authenticity. And authenticity can be broken down into a variety of other words, right? But whether it's integrity, honesty, discipline, self respect, there's a variety of different ways that we can approach it. But what I'm really, really grounded in, and is a little bit of a buzzword out here in Bali, which is probably where it was birthed from for me. But this idea of conscious connection is just identifying why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I'm not a slave to my reactivity. I'm not a slave to my desires, my dopamine hits. It's not unconnected or disconnected to the idea of addiction and sobriety as well, or people with, potential mental health struggles as well too. And like the ways that we are like, I don't feel good and I want to feel good. So I'm going to go do a thing that makes me feel good. But that's not necessarily the way that we need to operate. And it doesn't mean we can't. Like, I love a good chocolate cake, and I won't go down this rabbit hole for too long, but it's what's the intention behind it? What's the goal behind this feeling? And am I aware of why I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling? Am I aware that emotion is just energy in motion, that it will come in and it will pass? This too shall pass, we know. And so what am I doing with that? So that's kind of the basis of what conscious relating is really all about, is this idea of like, look, we're two sovereign beings, or multiple, depending on if you're relating in a group or otherwise, but also ourselves. Like you talk about masculine and feminine dynamics, which is chapter 7 and chapter 8, I think, in the book. I have to remember, I get my chapters mixed up even still. But and you talk about the polarities and what exists within us and the energies of both within ourselves. And that brings us back full circle to like the authenticity piece. And to thine own self be true is my absolute favorite quote of all time from William Shakespeare. And really settling into, well, what is my authentic self? Because if I don't know what my authentic self is, if I don't know what my soul desires are, how the heck am I going to communicate anything to the world, to a job, to my partner? And so it's a lot easier said than done, but it's really something that fuels me. So I could go off on a whole random tangent just on this question alone for probably a full hour, because it's what fires me up. It's the whole reason why I've been, wrote the book that I wrote, and why I'm leaning into the work that I'm doing. So yeah, thanks for the question.
Anything that doesn't come from a place of understanding yourself is a reaction to a wound, a
Yeah,
reaction to a type of programming. And when you can't understand that root within yourself, you have no opportunity to heal it. It's the first step
Mm,
in every journey, right? Is the
mm,
self awareness, the self acknowledgement, and the honesty with yourself, first and foremost, because otherwise you're not building you're not able to build anything without that strong foundation of who you are. And so
absolutely.
props to you for really cultivating a movement around that and a profession. Really, you're showing by example what that even looks like in your own relationships, in your book, which I really want to talk about at some point during
Yeah,
this podcast, because I'm
I'm
probably
in.
maybe halfway through it and it's very, very captivating. I will just preface it right off the bat by saying I appreciate that it's not another self-help book, because I have read, I mean, you can't really see my full bookcase, but I have read plenty of self-help books around attachment and love and codependency and everything. And your book has really brought it all together, like all the lessons from different aspects of like feminine, masculine energy, attachment issues, identity issues, everything. You've really wrapped it up beautifully and in a way that evokes more asking questions to get to the why of why you do things, rather than giving solution after solution about do this, practice that, psychological study this or that. It gets really dry very quickly and doesn't really resonate anymore. So
Yeah,
props
thanks
to
for
you
that.
for building it that way. Seriously.
No, well, thank you. That
Yeah.
means a lot. Yeah, I try to hit on a variety of different topics, a lot of which could probably be its own book, and in a lot of ways is its own book. But I wanted to really target people as high as clinicians. So yourself, Fausto, some other people that I know and work closely with in the space. And obviously my background and master's degrees around that, speaking to that audience at the high end, and hopefully they take value from it too with their own education and experience. But then down to their clients and just everyone else that is in the space of like, look, I just want to figure out more ways in a digestible manner. My target was ninth, 10th grade sort of writing style. So hopefully it resonates that way. I wanted to try to simplify it as much as I could and take these like really abstract ideas and also recognize that, look, the end of this is like, this is information, but it's also kind of philosophical. Like there's not necessarily a right answer to all of this stuff. Definitely like in something as abstract as love, but that doesn't mean I want to shy away from the topic. I want to lean into it. And I love that you said it's like getting people to ask questions. That was the target. That was the goal. It's like, I want to invoke, I think I even preface it a few times. Like my hope actually in this is to trigger you. Like that means I did a good job. If I can trigger you into being defensive, into like, oh, this guy sucks, or I don't agree, or whatever, but you keep reading, like, great, because that means you're discovering further what resonates with you. It's not about me writing my opinions of what I think everyone should think and believe on love and how they should love. That wouldn't make any sense. I mean, fine, and I'm sure there's some direction in there too, of course, but asking the questions for yourself, disagreeing at certain points, and discovering like this is actually what resonates with me is the root of authenticity. It's the root of what conscious relating is, and it starts with each and every one of us. So thank you for that reflection. That's really beautiful to hear.
I see the book as a true mirror. That's how I've been feeling it. Because I even noticed in one of the recent chapters, yeah, I got triggered by something that was said in the book. And it was just a reflection back on like, this is an area that is still a pain point in my life currently. And maybe it's my growth edge. And this is what I need to focus on next because I am getting triggered by something. And I think it's just a really great way of framing it. I think I can't think of another book that's designed in that way to bring it all together, different aspects of relational love and love with yourself. Like you said, each chapter could be its own book, and there already are books about it, each one. And I think if somebody wants to dive deeper into a specific topic like attachment, they could go find those resources. But this is a great resource to like start that journey of understanding the greater vision of healthy love in your life without even like, yeah, yeah. So props to you. I'm really excited to see where this book goes and how it helps so many people. But I would love to go back to the beginning. I want to hear how you grew up, how you ended up in your sobriety, and how you ended up living in Bali and doing what you do now. Because you've been in Bali for, I think, 6 years, maybe, if I recall, right? Am I around there? And it's a big jump to completely uproot your lifestyle from the United States to go there and live a very different lifestyles, surrounded by different people, different way of looking at spirituality, a different pace of life. And you've done it successfully for years now. How did you end up there?
Yeah, thanks for that. It's a good question. And I guess there's so many different ways I could start with it, but I guess to honor what you mentioned to kick it off around my family, I guess. So I grew up in Monterey, California, which is kind of central, but technically we'll say like northern, just south of San Francisco. My dad's a doctor, my mom's an artist. Like there's a nice blend of the sort of right brain, left brain, scientific and artsy. Really cute couple, honestly. They're adorably codependent in the best of ways. But they're really, really, really great people, really kind-hearted, and I'm grateful for that. And I think set a really good example in a number of ways. Nothing's perfect, of course, but yeah, and that really helps set the stage too. But yeah, I lived there majority of my life and eventually got sober because I struggled a lot with anxiety. At probably like 13, I have a lot of energy naturally. And so a big part of my story was not knowing what to do with that energy. Just a simple statement, like I said, emotion is energy in motion. We all have to start somewhere, but of course, we're birthed without majority of this knowledge, and we just take on the imprinting of whatever we learned from our family members. My parents, God love them, they did their best, but they grew up in a completely different generation, probably not as much of the mental health imprinting or really the details around that. And I don't know if they really understood much about anxiety, if at all. I mean, my grandpa was a high performer, high achiever. My dad's a high performer, high achiever. My mom's the same. And I think a lot of my family dynamics is just when you get into like an anxious mindset or the body's high energy, we just go and we do. And I think that's rooted in my family lineage anyway. However, for me, for whatever reason, and if you believe in generational, the people that are born to break generational curses or patterns or whatever you want to call it, if you buy into that, but potentially that's me, I don't know, but it manifested, yes, of course, in some high achieving, high doing, high performing type stuff. I have a number of different things I could sign off in my resume. However, at 13, 14, 15, 16, I was getting so sick to my stomach, I would throw up. And this was just like going to school. This was just like being in school. I remember walking like down the hallway and I would just like throw up in the garbage can like next to me. And that's like in high school. I mean, that's not normal. And I just couldn't figure it out. I had no idea like what was wrong with me. I thought I had an ulcer. They were giving me like stomach scopes and high dose antacids, and nothing was working. So understandably, because it's not what the issue was. So anyway, I was introduced to alcohol and with probably one of my first girlfriends and some other people. And I noticed right away that it started quieting the mind. And the quieting of the mind is what really resonated with me from a space of like, okay, cool. Like I can live now. But of course, being in high school and trying to drink and be a normal person is not going to work. So, I mean, yeah, the idea of self-medicating, I think, was a big part of my story. And I have a lot of empathy for people that go through that. And also, I take full accountability for the fact that it wasn't a good solution. It was a solution, but it wasn't a good solution. And that's where my story, accelerate quickly, because I could be a whole podcast somewhere on my sobriety journey in general. But I started getting into mischief really quickly. And I kind of look at it as, God showing up for me in the form of police officers, if that resonates. And I was just getting in trouble for everything all the time. I didn't get away with anything. I thought I was cursed at one point. And the truth is, it really was an opportunity to be like, no, like I'm in a lot of ways, it's like I'm being looked after. And that was really cool in hindsight to see it that way. But I got a couple loss of licenses and eventually had an accident where my brother broke his neck. I was responsible for accelerating in my journey. I got to a space where I was diagnosed, obviously formally diagnosed with panic disorder severe. I was given benzodiazepines to suppress it, which worked. But if you've ever taken benzos, or if anyone's familiar with benzodiazepines like a Xanax or a Klonopin, they very easily can lead you to blackout, just the pills themselves, but definitely mixed with drinking. And so that was what happened. I was drinking and I was a little bit, and I was taking my pills like as prescribed, but blacked out at the wheel. Shouldn't have been driving, of course, but I felt fine, I thought. And my brother was in the car and, broke his neck in the accident. And I went to jail I was sentenced for 4 months. I served one and was on 5-year felony probation. To be honest, if it wasn't the degree of consequences that I received, I definitely probably wouldn't have stayed sober, because I needed that heaviness at 21 years old to kind of put me on track. And then going to treatment facilities and going and doing outpatient and getting into therapy and forcing myself at 21 to be isolated, alone, afraid, unsure, completely unaware of who I was, completely like, I mean, to go through just the pain of all of it, trying to grow up, not knowing how to grow up, being uncomfortable in my emotions, not being able to escape my emotions, not being able to escape my house, like being on house arrest to serve the remaining 3 months, like, having to go show up for a job because otherwise I would, end up back in jail. There were all these conditions, and it was like I just couldn't, I had to show up. And to feel that in a sober landscape in my first year of sobriety, and then to kind of, I wouldn't say I conquered it, but to begin to understand my body, and to, when I start to feel flushes and when I start to feel a racing pulse or sweaty or whatever, just be like, okay, like anxiety is present, and I'm not going to force it away, and I'm not going to will it away. It's just is what it is. And to catch myself before I get hopefully to that oversaturation point. Anyway, so that's kind of a me trying to keep it a short story, but it's still quite a long story of what got me to my sobriety, and then what's really leaned me into the work that I do today. And to answer your question directly, how I ended up in Bali, like in that expansiveness, once I got free of my probation, once I got free of these things, I started to work as my first master's was in addiction counseling, and I wanted to give back in the space. And I worked in that capacity as a counselor for, eating disorders, mental health disorders, addiction, personality disorders. Like I was highly focused in DBT training and CBT training and all these things that I had learned to quiet the mind and stabilize emotional regulation patterns. And it was quite a gift, actually. It was very like a huge blessing, not just for the work that I did family interventions as well. And there were so many different things I did. And it's interesting to think that I could run a group of 60 to 100 men at a treatment facility. Story, which is not the best way to run a group. It is what it is. That's how they operate sometimes. And be like, how did I get here? Like, how does an anxious, panic, vomiting guy all of a sudden lead, 60, 80, 100 people on a Saturday morning for an hour and a half long group? And I started to feel pride for some of my accomplishments, and for what I'd learned, and some of the confidence that I was gaining, and my appreciation. And I realized the root of all this, they say the opposite of addiction is connection. So to finish your question with this thought of how I got here too, I realized the root of this is really the connection piece. And while I love Southern California, which is where I met you guys, and I lived there for a number of years, like my life felt contained. It felt small. It didn't feel expansive. That's no disrespect to Southern California. That's just how I was in that space. And so I traveled all 50 states. I was a helicopter pilot for a while. I was all over the place, Ashraf. I didn't know what I wanted to do. But so I did a variety of things, but all of which was from an expansive state, and including scuba diving. And everywhere I went, everything I did, I was constantly just intrigued and enamored by the way that people connected, and what drew them to me, or what drew them away from me, what drew them to each other, identifying different patterns, coping mechanisms, defense mechanisms. And I just started seeing like people, this like magical puzzle, like all of us just trying to fit together in this like blob of life with our own patterns and stuff. And it just felt like, I don't know, wow, the witness, but like it just evoked this insane curiosity for me. And anyway, that led me to continue to travel more, because different cultures leads to greater curiosity. So going to India, Maldives, Mexico, eventually Indonesia. I mean, I've been to 50 plus countries at this point. That's not a flex. That's just saying that's where my journey took me. And all to say that I landed in Bali through kind of a gift and a blessing of meeting somebody that I connected well with, who invited me here. And I landed in the space, and it just felt like home. I use it more as a home base, but I have my home here, and hope to continue to build a life here. And yeah, it's a magical place. I know you guys have been here too, so you can probably speak to it as well. But it's not perfect for sure, but it's definitely a place that resonates with me, from the people, the connection, the culture, and it fuels my continued curiosity for how and why we stay connected in the ways that we do. And it is very abundant from a space of conscious relating and giving myself that grounded time to stop and reflect and feel like, okay, like what is it that I want to do, and how can I show up in people's lives without the hustle and bustle and the busyness that was kind of getting after me in Southern California. So that was a very, very long answer. I don't know if that resonated for some people. It wasn't like I woke up one day and was like, I'm going to go to Bali, and then I just stayed here. It was actually quite a lot of things that brought me to this point.
I mean, you truly have experienced life's lowest lows, and you are a true testament to how you can completely change that around. Your past is not your destiny. It's designed to help you learn a very important lesson about yourself. Would you say it's fair that you being in jail was the first time that you really got to go inward, given all those experiences of like numbing with alcohol and being afraid of all the anxious thoughts that were going through your mind and your body, and how your body was physically reacting to your anxiety? Because obviously we know body keeps score, and our body is just a reflection of our mental health in a lot of ways.
Yeah, honestly, I got chills when you said that. I don't even know if I ever stopped and looked at it that way. That's really beautiful. What jumped into my head when you asked that question was I started off this journaling, and I never journaled. And I called it Jailhouse Journals. I think I had this idea in my head. It was going to take off this storyline of this troubled 21-year-old. But no, really, it was just documenting the day-to-day life and what my experience was in the process. And kind of, yeah, just how far astray I was led by myself. It's not anybody else that did it, but allowing me to be a slave to potentially, that's how I choose to see it, of like, I don't want to feel this way. I want to feel better. So chasing that, like, I don't want to feel this way type of energy, led me to that place. And it was like, well, this isn't going to work. 21, with my brother having a broken neck, my parents, not very thrilled with me, understandably, and me not thrilled with myself. I mean, you talk about like massive periods of depression and anxiety and I
Shame.
mean, yeah, thank you. Yeah, exactly. Nailed it. That's the word. I mean, it's hard to feel good about myself when I'm sitting on in a barrack with 170 people, you know, rapists and murderers and DUIs, me looking around like, I don't think I belong here. But also the stark reality of like, well, where do I belong? Like, what do my actions tell me? Because society's telling me that that's actually exactly where I belong. And it was a rude awakening. I would love to say that I walked out of jail and just like had that awakening, but I didn't. I walked out and I went and I got drunk right away because that was my coping skill for life. However, it did afford me that opportunity to just stop, and because I couldn't go anywhere, I was stuck, doing the journaling and really focusing on myself of like, what am I doing? And it did, I think, yeah, you nailed that. I don't even know that I ever thought of it that way, but I do think it really planted the initial seed for sure.
I really resonate with you saying that you weren't even sure if you belonged anywhere. And I find that's a common thread that unites nomadic backpackers like us, even though I'm not living a nomadic lifestyle currently. But that mentality of wanting to experience the world, every nook and cranny, experience everything about what humanity has to offer, see all the commonalities across different cultures, and it really shows us that we neither belong in one place nor any place. And I think we're kind of unique in that way, where wherever we go, home will follow us. And we also are haunted by all our problems and everything, because you can't, no matter where you go, what you do, you'll never escape. You'll really never escape until you go inward and try to find the source of the pain. So I think it's really beautiful that in that journey, you first turn towards helping the community around you and coming to discover that you have this unique sense of curiosity that makes you different from other people in sobriety. I think, and this is not a judgment, this is an observation of seeing my partner's journey in recovery. I noticed that a lot of people have to identify very strongly with themselves as being a person in recovery. And I think that's really important because you have to be honest with yourself. But I also think you are so much more. And when you start to travel and expand beyond yourselves, you get to view a version of yourself that's untethered by your past. You can be whoever you want to be. You can introduce yourself as somebody who doesn't have anxiety and live in that mentality for a minute, or somebody who didn't experience alcohol abuse and live in that for a minute, and really see, who am I when it's not the history that's following me wherever I go.
Love that. Yeah, no, it was beautifully, beautifully said. And obviously we're super aligned because we do the same work in a number of ways. But yeah, my last chapter, I spend the whole course of the book talking about labels and identifying patterns and things. And the last chapter, which I thought intentionally tied it together really well, is called The Dangers of Labels. So I'm really excited to circle back with you after you read that, because what you just said, it holds so much truth. I love it from a roadmap guide. like Zac panic disorder severe, like Zac ADHD, Zac, alcoholic, all these things. Okay, yeah, like watch my alcohol intake, or in this case, 19 years sober, don't intake alcohol. Okay, fine. But like, okay, ADHD, okay, watch my attention patterns and be mindful of the way that I engage. But also ADHD guys, write a book on their own. I understand AI is out there these days, but I didn't use AI for this book. I've been working on it for a number of years, and that's fine for anybody else that does use it. But I wanted to do it myself. I wanted to do my own research. I wanted to do my own writing. And so going to a coffee shop and writing 8-10 hours a day, no exaggeration, from this corner, and making that goal a targeted goal. I mean, ADHD people don't do that, right? That's not in the diagnostic manual that's what we do. That's not a thing.
Well, some ADHD people do hyper focus for extended periods of time. So maybe it
Very
is.
fair. Very
Yeah.
fair, and also identify with that a lot. But what I'm saying, if I'm like a psychiatrist and I said, and they were looking to diagnose me, and if you're familiar with the DSM manual, diagnostic statistical manual, like I don't think they're going to give me an ADHD diagnosis if I tell them that I'm working on a book and I'm writing with execution every single day. And then you take the panic disorder severe, and I'm speaking in front of people, I'm organizing events. I got into DJing. I'm here on a podcast with you with a microphone in my face. I'm leaning into public speaking engagement opportunities. And the point of all that is, like, I think labels are great for their purpose and intention to a point. But if we box us in a category, then we're living in that constraint. It's the basis of what is also known as limiting belief systems. So I don't want to live in a limiting belief system. Like, I get on an airplane and I fly anywhere I want because it's the opposite of a limiting belief system. I go to an international airport and I look at the board and I'm thinking to myself, I was like, granted, we all need money to do this, but free ourselves of this limiting constraint system of financial limitations. And imagine we just had the funds and the freedom to just get on any plane to go anywhere we want. And that's what I see when I see those boards. And it just blows my mind. And it makes me so happy. And then I apply that to life of like, what? Like, why do I feel like I have to be constrained to anything? Like, because I'm afraid? Of course, we're all afraid. I mean, yeah, I still have like terror and fear before I get on stage, but I'm also told that I'm good on stage. So, and I always feel really good after I'm on stage. So it's like this weird relational dynamic of like, I don't want to do the thing that feels good that also I think I'm good at. But I don't know if that resonates with anyone either. But my point is, like, just walking through that, I think, is one of the greatest things we can do. And the first time I ever, long before I got on a plane by myself, I went to a country by myself. I went to dinner by myself. I went to the movies by myself. I went to the beach by myself. It doesn't have to be that you get on a plane and you fly to the other side of the world and you uproot your whole life. Matter of fact, in a lot of ways, that can actually cause more trauma and do more harm than good because it's like so overwhelming. Just start with, like, go to a coffee shop and don't grab your phone. I know it's crazy. But like, don't be on Instagram distracting yourself. Just like sit and have a cup of coffee and observe the world around you. And better than that, observe what goes on inside of yourself. It's like, because that's the gold, is like, oh my God, I'm so uncomfortable. People think I'm weird. I'm sitting by myself. Nobody cares. It's like almost 100%
Exactly.
guaranteed. And if somebody does care, it's probably because they're just interested. Maybe they're attracted to you.
Yeah.
Or they're
That's
wondering,
what I
how are they
always
doing
say.
that? Yeah, go for it.
I always challenge people. It's like, do you walk into a space and look around for the people who are sitting by themselves and sit there judging them? It doesn't cross your mind. Why would it cross anybody else's mind? And if it does cross their mind, that's just a reflection of them. And I think going back to the labels, and I'm guilty of this too, but when people like us are multilingual, there are languages that don't like to say I am XYZ adjective. They say I have XYZ, meaning you can have ADHD or an addiction, but it doesn't make you that thing. And I think it's an important distinction that sometimes we have to remind ourselves that me personally, have a disorganized attachment style. I have, depression and anxiety and OCD, but that doesn't make it my destiny. It makes it part of my journey. It makes it something that I have to heal from. And that's something I really appreciate about your book too, is you really honed in on the fact that, like, this is not your end state. This is what maybe was provided to you as your foundation, and that's not your fault. but the rest is up to you. You get to decide where you're going to go with it. And I think travel is a big aspect of that. I also agree. And it's a big part of our program. We tell our clients, go to a movie by yourself, go to a restaurant alone, start doing things alone that start to establish your sense of independence and safety within yourself. Because at the end of the day, we live and die by ourselves. We have to
Amen.
be comfortable being in our own bodies. We have to be comfortable being in our minds. Figure out why you're so scared of your mind and befriend it. Become hand in hand with your mind and learn what that feels like to be your own best friend. And from there, everything is possible. And it really, for me, my way of discovering that was through taking a road trip across California at 16 when I was displaced and being like, well, I have nowhere to go. Might as well just go north and figure it out from there, And then from there, my curiosity started sparking. And then once you get a taste of that travel bug, that curiosity, it just grows. It grows and grows. And then you start to explore other states and you start to explore other countries. And then before you know, you've seen the whole world. And like you said, you don't have to have a lot of money. If you have a car, if you have a train ticket, you can go in a lot of places. And money really is about how you prioritize spending as well. And if you're spending on the newest this or that, it's just, everything is a reflection of your priorities at the end of the day. But that's digress.
Some people travel for less than they spend when they're just living in, I mean, Southern California is not cheap, and most of America these days is not cheap. So, the idea of having an apartment, paying bills, insurance, all this stuff. I mean, for example, I use a travel insurance, and even as a 40-year-old man, I think it just went up to like $200 a month or something like that. But I can get, it's essentially what would be a PPO equivalent of care at any hospital. There's only 3 excluded countries, one of which is not ironically the US, but you're still covered through emergency travel, like for 30 days if something happens. So you're still technically covered if I needed an ambulance or something happened, but you can't go there for surgeries. But the point is, there are ways out there. Some people identify it as financial hacking. I don't know that I go that far, but there are ways out there where you can, $7 for me to fill up my scooter out here. My scooter was 1,000 US, and that's my mode of transport. I have a 2-bedroom, 2-bath villa that's 900 meters from the beach that, is basically was like 150,000 US dollars. And that's not a flex. That's just an example of like, I don't know what you can get in the US for that these days, but like finances there are ways to navigate it independent of what I just shared for my own stuff. But say, okay, I don't want to buy a villa, or I can't buy a villa. Okay, fine. People do the hostel thing. They do the budget flight thing. They do the pack their own food thing. And there are lots of ways to eat cheap. I mean, when you travel through Mexico and all these different things, like I've done homestays. I mean, I'm not above anything. Like I've literally crashed couches. You do the crash surfing thing. You can do house sitting when you watch people's pets and get to stay there for free. You do home exchanges if you do have a home, and then you can. I mean, we live in a world where it's kind of crazy that everybody doesn't travel all the time. Like it's so well set up at airlines where like if you can just carry a backpack and you don't mind like wearing the same thing, like same 2-3 outfits, you're not going to spend a bunch of money because baggage fees are insane these days. But there's lots of different ways to accomplish it if you want. But even if you don't, like I don't think you would do this either, but I don't try to force anybody to travel if they don't want to. I just invite them to that capacity, starting with like, yeah, go to the beach by yourself, go to the coffee shop by yourself, see how it feels. And maybe that's as far as you want to go. Maybe it's just a little hour-long trip or whatever. It doesn't have to be that you get and go to a different country. That's not necessarily for everyone. But for me, I knew in my heart of hearts and my soul of souls, like I wanted to meet as many people as I could in this world and make as many connections. And the impact that I've seen from that and what I continue to learn, I get in my head sometimes. I'm sure some people probably can resonate with this and, about where I could be or should be or whatever. And I have a pretty accomplished life in a number of ways, but I'm still guilty of that. And then I'll drive down the road on my scooter and I'll look over at this probably 70-year-old woman with a bag of rice field leftovers or whatever on top of her head. And I'm thinking to myself, and she's barefoot walking on the side of the road. I'm thinking to myself, I was like, what are you worried about, man? What are you doing? And it's so humbling in these moments. You could probably see that in the US too, but for me, it really speaks here. Or I see the kids playing in the beach and, it's so priceless to just watch them hop around and feel like, man, some of these people have way more joy. And that doesn't mean everyone with Ferraris isn't happy, but it's not, as a lot of us do know, and Jim Carrey speaks to this, and a lot of like high performing, like highly successful people speak to this. It's not about the things, you know, it really isn't. It's about the experiences and the connections. And that's the root, not to bring it back to the book, but the basis of all this stuff. It's just the root of like what really speaks to us and what brings us the joy. And yeah, I found it in travel and I found it in connection. And that's what keeps me probably sober, because otherwise I would probably feel the need to pick up and numb. But I don't. I feel the need to spend time with myself and spend time with others, and it's beautiful.
Well, you're no longer escaping yourself. And it's
Mm-hmm.
because you've spent the time to really sit with yourself and come to discover your own limits. And more importantly, the fact that those limits 99.9% of cases are made up in your head. And when
Yeah.
you get to really challenge yourself, and I think honestly, we're not given many opportunities to be very uncomfortable in our day-to-day lives. And I think that's the importance of travel, is the discomfort and the fear that you get to face. And you can't be brave, you can't be courageous if you don't feel the fear. The fear is a very core, important part of that self development journey. You have to be there, you have to feel it, you have to embrace it and work through it, or else you get stuck. That's really the end game here, is you have to work through the fear. So I think it's a true testament to what travel can offer, but it's not the travel itself. It's what is the lesson of the travel. It's get out of your comfort zone. It's go beyond what you've experienced in your day-to-day life, break the monotony, go discover your real why behind everything. Because we're so conditioned and so used to a highly consumerist, very capitalistic lifestyle in the United States. I think a lot of people don't understand that's not the majority of the world. That's not how the majority of the world operates. Just living to be the most successful in XYZ career path, to buy the most of these kinds of things and, show a certain type of appearance. Most of the world is not this ambitious. And I think that's the beauty of the United States. It does allow you to build dreams. But at the same time, you have to come to understand your own humanity. And that's not your only purpose on this planet. You have to live. You have to figure out what living even means for you. So how do you do that?
Yeah.
You get away from this stuff. Yeah. And I come
Well,
back, I come back to California time and time again, just so grateful because of all the opportunity available here, the diversity. I can't find anywhere for me that compares to the experience that I can have in California. But I also understand, like, you pay for what you get here. And that can be really painful and not sustainable for a lot of people. So, but I'm grateful to be able to have gone when I'm feeling frustrated, I'm escaping something in my life, I'm hating on my job, or I'm navigating a breakup or family issues or whatever. And I go and escape and I see people walking barefoot with a basket on their head. And I realize my problems ain't shit. They're so small. So they're blessings at the end of the day. For me to be annoyed with my engineering career, get out of here, dude. I have nothing to complain about.
that's a
Like,
good point.
come
Yeah,
back, you feel blessed.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it works almost for everyone, because there's always going to be somebody out there that would want to trade positions for with us. And I've heard that reflected a lot. And it's really, it's being, yeah, of course we could look at it the other way too if we want to live in that mindset. But like, where is that going to bring us? Ultimately, and that's what I choose to look at, is like, how do I want to feel and where do I want to go? And if I look at like, oh, poor me, poor me. In AA, they say, poor me, poor me, pour me a drink, because you get stuck in that victim mentality. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, like life sucks and whatever, whatever. And that's not to take away from depression. I understand the heaviness of it. I've experienced it myself, and I've worked with, probably hundreds of people, no exaggeration, specifically around that. But a lot of it comes from that living out of alignment. It comes from that. I love what you said, and I don't remember his name. I know his first name is Alex, but he just finished this free climbing feat. And he was on a podcast talking about exactly what you said. And I don't know if that's where that came from or just came from yourself too. But
No.
this whole idea of if we don't give ourselves real fear to experience, like we will find ways to sort of make it up. I'm paraphrasing what he said, but like we'll find ways to be afraid of things that we shouldn't be afraid of in our everyday lives. And again, totally paraphrased, might have even butchered that. I encourage any listener out there to check it out yourself, because the way he worded it is really eloquently put, and you worded it in a great way too. It made me think of that, of like, yeah, like why not? It doesn't mean we have to go free climb like buildings and go crazy. Again, it can just be as simple as going to the coffee shop and putting your phone down for an hour and just like having a mindful cup of coffee. If no one's familiar with what that means, it means like stopping and smelling it, taking a small sip before and after you apply the
All
milk or the
five
sugar or whatever.
senses. feel the
Yeah.
heat of the cup. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We forget we
Exactly.
have five senses.
Well, and usually we're on our way to something. We got to put in a to-go cup. We got to order ahead. We can't even talk to anybody. God forbid. We have to do a Starbucks mobile app order while we're on the toilet or something in the morning, you know,
Yeah.
and then because we can't just be ever doing one thing, we always have to be multitasking. We always have to be hyper engaged. And it's no wonder, man, our systems are fried. It's just like, just chill. Like maybe that's easier said than done, but like, let's just not do a mobile app for a moment. Let's allow ourselves the 5 minutes it takes to wait in line and to order a coffee. Let's not get upset about the fact that the coffee takes 5 to 10 minutes. And let's actually stretch it further and be like, let's make this coffee last a half an hour or an hour instead of like, I got to get as fast as I can. I have to drink it as fast as I can. I have to get to work as fast as I can. And like the 12-lane freeway of Los Angeles that goes nowhere.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know.
Hate it or
That's
love
what
it. Yeah.
that's what all comes to mind for me of like just one of my best advice I ever got from a sponsor in AA a while ago. I was living in Florida, South Florida, which is very similar to Southern California because so many people want to live there. And I was on A1A, which is a side sort of highway right next to the ocean. It's a beautiful drive, but it's notorious for being like immobile. It's very similar to the 405 freeway or a lot of these packed freeways. And I was trying to go from Hollywood, Florida to Fort Lauderdale, which is not that far. That's that much more irritating. But because it was so many stoplights and so many cars, it take you like an hour. And I remember being so like furious and angry. And he just messaged me or called me or told me at some point, I don't remember exactly how, but he's like, roll up your windows, turn on your air conditioning. He's like, put on something that like feels good or sounds good to you. And he's like, just enjoy the moment. Like you're not gonna speed up the traffic by being angry. You know, it's not gonna like it's just gonna irritate you more. You like just sit in the moment and enjoy yourself. Find a way to be comfortable. And really what that reinforced is this idea of being comfortable with the uncomfortable, which is some of the greatest blessings we can experience around it's kind of Buddhist in nature, this idea of just grounding and accepting things without attaching to them. And yeah. So, I mean, whether it goes back full circle to the diagnoses bit or how we relate or what's coming up for us, even our desire to
Well,
potentially
that
escape.
part really it really resonates with like the power of travel because you're forced to truly surrender. You are in a foreign country taking some sort of public transportation, most likely, or even if you have a private driver. You know, I remember being in Kenya, being stuck in literally 6 hours of traffic just to get to my destination. And it was brutal and the roads were really uneven and I was feeling really car sick. And I just knew there's nothing I can do to control the situation. I have to learn how to let go and to truly just like surrender to this and accept that I will be okay. It's happening. It's happening right now, but it's going to be over. It's not forever. It's temporary.
Yeah.
You know, and that same mindset carries with you as you navigate challenges back at home. And I think reminding yourself you're capable of surrender. You're capable of being present. And I did it in all these different places. I can do it here at home. I think these are the ways that you've changed as a human being every time you step outside your comfort zone, whether that's through travel or something else. But it's the release of control, and which is something I still struggle with every single day. But it's knowing where my limits are with my realm of influence and what I can and can't control. And that gives me a lot more peace of mind and helps like
Mm.
calm different aspects of my OCD. For example, if I know my OCD brain is activated and it's telling me I have to do this to control this outcome, I have a pretty good sense now, like that's unrealistic. Like this is not something I can control and I have to accept that.
Yeah, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. I think it's an important realization though. And I hope for everybody to give themselves the opportunity to go outside of their comfort zone, step into fear and realize like their true full potential and who they really are at the end of the day when all the noise, all the capitalism, all the family, all that history is behind you for 5 seconds. You know, who are you? What are you left with? What are you going to live and die with?
Yeah.
That's what matters at the end of the day. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And the fact that like in the spirit of the travel dynamic, like nature nurture works like both ways. It is a 50-50 impact. While I'm 100% absolutely bought into the idea of wherever you go, there you are, that's your 50% nature. I get those confused. Yeah, what we're brought up with, like we carry that with us. However, also, and I use this extreme analogy of like if you take a Hawaiian and you stick him in the Arctic, like he might have a tough time. And like that, it doesn't matter what his upbringing is. Like the other 50%, the Arctic, I mean, he might figure it out based on his upbringing, but the other 50% is going to kick in too. And so if our external environments are impacting us negatively, yes, we can have a positive thought pattern. We can do all the work that we need to do. We can go to the gym. We can meditate. We can cope with it using our 50% nature. However, the external impact is going to have that external impact. And so why not, and this is my sort of argument for travel, why not explore different parts, whether that's the US, whether that's different cities, whether that's different communities inside of your city. It can be on a micro level as well as a macro level, going to an entirely different continent. I mean, even in Bali, and you know this too, like the difference between the three main places here, Canggu, Uluwatu, and Ubud are massive. I mean, it's surfer bros and then spiritual bros and then gym bros, if everything's
Party.
a bro out here. Yeah, right. And it's all has its sub communities, and there's a place for all of it, I guess. But to thine own self be true, again, coming back full circle to the William Shakespeare quote, like what resonates best for the person, to their soul, to their authentic self, is particularly, I mean, I guess all human beings can be this way, but they talk a lot about this for addicts and alcoholics as well. We can be chameleons, and we wear these masks. And Jim Carrey talks a lot about, and I actually love him in a number of ways. I don't know if that's polarizing or not, because he can be a very interesting figure, but I don't think it's
He's a very
unironic.
wise man.
His
I mean, he
movies,
stepped away from Hollywood for a long time. So I think
I was
that
gonna
was a
say,
big part of his own like spiritual development is you step away from the norm, step away from your comfort zone, discover who you are. He's a perfect testament to that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, you look at movies like The Mask or The Truman Show, and you think about it from that. I mean, he talked about depression being like your body needing to go into deep rest, depression, like deep rest. And it's a result of us being exhausted from wearing our masks. And the more I've listened to him speak and share and realize the movies he participated in, I'm like, well, this is insane. Like he was so vocal through his work, whether he meant to be that way or not, about the way that he sees and experiences the world, and like, the impacts of Hollywood. I think he was like seen, and people probably thought he was crazy, but he's like, none of this is real. He was on an interview at like a red carpet event, and the woman's talking to him, and he's like, all of this is made up, none of this matters, like I don't care. And I'm sure people are like, what? But yeah,
It's true.
yeah,
I mean, there's
it's
red carpet events
wild.
happening here while
Yeah.
there's genocides happening elsewhere. I mean, really pick what the reality is for people. I think he's very astute in that way, and I really appreciate that he grounds the realities of Hollywood and
Yeah.
where social media and TV and shows and movies can really distort and create this perception that this is the vision of success, is you get to
Yeah.
this point of visibility and wealth and fashion, whatever that looks like. But I'm sure behind closed doors they are lonely, they're miserable, they're afforded so many opportunities that they don't even know what's what within themselves anymore. Maybe I'm overgeneralizing, but I think it's an important aspect of like taking a step back and find your own values, realize who you are, what your values are, and everything else becomes more clear. You're not going to be as easily phased by these perceptions of success.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt there's happy celebrities out there with tons of money that are living
Of
their best lives,
course.
but there's also a
Yeah.
variety and a large number that have, committed suicide or have overdosed on drugs. And, we could go down a laundry list of those too. And so that's just a perfect example, case in point, that humans are humans. And it does come back to that. I think that nature nurture, like how can we best support ourselves to be at our optimum selves? And what does that look like for us? And what does an optimum self even mean? But, having exposure to a variety of different cultures, a variety of different experiences, like I have a better understanding of the type of people that I best relate with. It doesn't mean I can't connect with everybody, but we're not necessarily meant to. But what are the ones that I gravitate towards naturally? What are the cultures that feel good to me? Even something as simple as a circadian rhythm. Like for me, I don't do well, even though I love the snow, I don't do well with seasonal changes. Living near the equator, when the sun rises and sets almost every single day at 6:30, is magic for me. It's perfect. I go to bed earlier. I eat dinner earlier, I get up earlier, and I'm more in line with a circadian rhythm that I like that doesn't shift and move. Like I spent time in Spain during the summer, and I was eating dinner at 11 o'clock at night. The sun was setting at like 10:15, 10:30. I'm like, this is crazy. I can't live here. This is some people would probably love it, but I'm like, this is insane. I don't understand this way of life. Like, it just doesn't work for me. So again, what works for you out there? Like, that's all that matters. You don't have to listen to me and what works for me. You might come to Indonesia and hate it. A lot of people, wouldn't say a lot of people do, but there's a fair number of people that come to Bali thinking it's going to fix all their problems, and they run away after a month, 2 months, 3 months, because they're like, I have a bunch of problems here and I don't actually like this place. And it's like, yeah, it's just a
Wherever
tropical
you go,
island.
there you are. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So for sure.
Yeah, yeah. It's never, nowhere you go is ever going to solve your problems. And I think no amount of, people who think once I get this job, then everything will be better. Once I get to this physique, once I get to this income, once I get to this milestone, everything will be better. But that's never the case. You hit that milestone, whatever it is, and you probably more or less still feel the same way you did the day before. And then you're realizing, oh, maybe it's something more existential than this.
Yeah,
And I
for
think that's
sure.
where we can really, really offer what your book has to teach, which is come inward, face
Mm.
yourself, look in the mirror, figure out what you're fighting me on and what you disagree with and where is it coming from? It's okay, but where is it coming from? What's the root? I think it's an important book for that. You should create a journal to complement your book. I feel like that would be a really great way to help somebody go even deeper, like the Untethered Soul journal.
Thank you for that reflection. Yeah, I actually have a
Yeah,
buddy of mine helping me build
yeah,
an
it
app
just
at the
occurred to
moment.
me.
Yeah, but the
But
journal, I
that's a
think it is
great idea.
beautiful. Yeah, yeah, I think there's a few things I want to do with it for sure, but definitely the journal right now. I mean, the main thing right now is getting it out there, which I did, getting it known, which is happening, and obviously people like you in supporting me and reading it and appreciating it is amazing. And but yeah, the phases of this. I mean, like I've been telling everyone, I'm 40 now, and I don't, God willing, I'll be here at least another 40 years. Like I'll be doing this for the next 40 years. Love Unlocked isn't going anywhere. If anything, this is just the very, very, very early
It's the
stages of the
beginning.
planting weed. So yeah, it'll be, hopefully by me anyways, talked about it for a long time. Hopefully other people too.
Yeah.
We'll see where it
I'm
goes.
very proud of you. You're one of the most self-aware people I know, and to like really embody your lessons in the way that you do. And even having seen you navigate heartbreak and whatnot in such a grounded way, like you just trust yourself, you trust in the greater vision, and you know that you're going to be okay. Like for a lot of people, that can be a very earth shattering experience, but you held your emotion, you validated it, and you moved through it in a way that shows your emotional maturity. And I really respect that you are able now to give that through a written book in the way that you did. And I really appreciate it. I think everybody could use it. Everybody needs a reminder at the very least. But just to
Yeah,
close out this beautiful podcast, because I've really enjoyed speaking with you, and I could talk to you for hours, as we
for
know,
sure.
we've done it
Same,
before.
same, for sure.
What would you say is like your one key advice for somebody who has experienced a lot of trauma and is interested in taking those steps of gaining their independence and experiencing themselves outside their comfort zone, but they're really scared? They're not sure if they can handle it. They're not sure if they can afford it. What would you say to those individuals?
I love this. I love this question. There's a variety of different ways you can answer it, all of which I think would be empowering. But the best thing that comes to mind for me that I think is the simplest is all in our self talk. And what I mean by that, because it's like, oh, of course, Zach, everything's self talk, blah, blah, blah. I know. I'm going to go deeper, I promise. Take it to the space of your youngest self. And this is also in the book, but with good reason. Like whether we want to acknowledge, like picture a child in front of us that's struggling, that scraped their knee, that hurt themselves in some way, or like that is struggling with 2 + 2 = 4. They can't figure it out. It's like, I have 2 apples and then I add 3 oranges. Like, how many pieces of fruit do I have? And the kid's like, 7. And they get it wrong. I mean, are you screaming at the kid like, you're so stupid? How do you not know this? There's only 5 pieces of fruit. It's like most people anyway are going to be like, no, sweetie, or no, honey. Like, there's 3 oranges, and like, you might go get 3 oranges or something. And then there's 2 apples. Like, count with me. Like, how many? Like, imagine talking to yourself like that. Like, just pause for that moment and feel it. I don't know. I get chills whenever I tell people this. I get chills now
I
talking
have
about it too.
chills
I
right
feel
now.
like nobody does that. And then you take it to a space of like trauma, and it's like, you need it even more, man. Like, why wouldn't you talk to yourself that way? Like, why wouldn't you be that kind to yourself? Like, if you keep counting 7, that's fine, but it doesn't matter how many times you count 7. Like, are you still going to be mad at that kid? Like, I can't imagine in any world. I mean, at some point I might be a little confused why he's not getting it, but it doesn't matter. But even then, there's going to be a grace and patience that's probably borderline endless and infinite around. Like, it's okay.
Yeah, that's a really powerful way to ground yourself in inner child work. I think we don't talk about inner child work enough on this channel or even at Travel Through Trauma. And I think it's a really important aspect. Even reframing it for me as I do, would I tell a friend who's coming up to me and saying, "Hey, I want to do this thing," would I start belittling them and telling them they can't do it and they're not capable? Hell no. Who am I to say that to a friend? But why would I say that to myself at the same time? What, and whose voice is that really? Is that really my voice? Is that really my belief system? Or is that my conditioning? Is that what I've been told as a kid? And I think differentiating our own voice from our parents' voice is also part of that inner child work, is whose voice is the one belittling you. I think that's important, because when you can be gentle with yourself and say, hey, it's okay that you're scared. It's okay that you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. It's okay that you're worried that you're going to get lost or something's going to get lost in translation. You're safe. You're safe. I've got you. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That's really beautiful. Well, thank you so much for your time, your energy, your responses, your vulnerability. It's been such a pleasure. This has been really, really energizing for me. I want to know if anybody wants to reach out to you. How can they get in contact with you? There's really no reason to get it at this point. So easy to get it everywhere. I love it. I have both the Kindle and the audiobook version. You do a great job with the audiobook. I'm not even a huge fan of audiobooks in general. I recently got into it, but yours is very good. You have a great audiobook voice, actually. It's very soothing and very engaging. Yeah. Great job. Yeah. It's not monotonous at all. I love it. Well, thank you so much for your time. I'll make sure to include all your contact information in the description. So if you have any questions about it, go check there.